Hi, I'm Dr. Bertice Berry, and I want to tell you a story. Years ago in graduate school, I had a research advisor who was one of the toughest women I've ever met. Dr. Elizabeth Mullins was from Minnesota, and she was rough and gruff, and my colleagues were afraid of her, and they were like, I don't know how you're going to work with her, and I don't know why you would. My mother had been tough, so I wasn't afraid of tough. Dr. Mullins was also incredibly brilliant, and I wanted some of that. One day, early in our relationship, she sent me to the library and she said, Bert, she always called me Bert, go to the library and find all the studies that prove that black women are more sexually permissive than white women. What? I wanted to say something, but I was still a little bit too timid and I was new and I didn't want to get fired like all of her other grad assistants. So I went to do what she said. In the middle of the week, I was walking down the hall trying not to be seen. She caught me. Bert, get in here. She said, how many of those studies have you found? I said, about 14. She said, there's 4 more than I found. Keep looking. I went back to the library. Probably found about 25 of those studies that claimed to prove that black women were more sexually permissive than white women. I went back to Dr. Mullins and told her. And she said, is this true? I said, excuse me. She said, do you know this to be personally true? I'm thinking, is she asking me about my own? And I just blurted out, no, it's not. I grew up in an all-black school system, but I went to a predominantly white college. And I knew what my black sister friends said, and I knew what my white sister friends said, and there was a huge difference. And let me just say, my black sister friends sounded more like they were Pentecostal, like me. She said, then how do they say it? And I said, well, they said they proved it in the statistical analysis. She pointed at those papers and pointed at my abstracts and pointed out my abstracting of the studies. And she said, where did the data come from? Look at where the data came from. And some of the sample sets for black women would come from maybe prison, and the white women would come from Catholic schools. And they would compare these two things as if they were the same. And she said they hide it in these numbers, they hide it in these collections of data, they hide it in all kinds of places, but it's in plain sight. And you need to know what's being said about you, and you need to know how it's being said. She said, what do they think about Rosa Parks? I said, people say she's an old woman who was tired and one day sat down on a bus. And she said, what was she? And I said, she was a researcher. She cataloged. She went down south and recorded and cataloged and listened to all the stories of black women who had been raped by white men, many of them multiple times, brutal attacks by multiple men. And Rosa Parks would sit down and listen, and she recorded all of these. She was a researcher. She said, then why do people think of her as a tired woman who sat down on a bus? And I said, I don't know. And she said, because it's easier to think of her that way than to see her as the woman who knows. Rosa Parks knew. W.E.B. Du Bois wrote about it in Souls of Black Folk when he said that black men during slavery were accused of raping white women. And he said, but we have a nation of mulattoes that prove otherwise. Why am I saying this? Yesterday, I saw a message from my friend Sean, who went to high school with me, and it was a post of a t-shirt. The t-shirt had the same message of a billboard that this man had put up on his private land, so nothing could be done about it. But the t-shirt was there on Amazon to be sold. It said, say no to Joe and the hoe. And here we were again with the same tired narrative. I wrote a nice letter to Jeff Bezos and told him I was a loyal customer. So were my friends in my community. And I knew that he didn't know everything that was on his site. And I knew that there was no way he could know that he and his team needed to be aware of something that was there that didn't represent who they were. I got a message back immediately. When I was doing stand-up years ago, I would close with a bit. And I said, I want to leave you with a message that I got from a brother from down south. And I did the stance and I got everybody ready. And I walked up to the mic and I started speaking French. And I said, the brothers from the south of France. I quoted the philosopher that said, fear not your enemies. The worst they can do is kill you. Fear not your friends. The worst they can do is betray you. Fear those who do nothing, because murder and betrayal exist out of our silent consent. Yesterday I said something. Sean said something. We said something. And they took that shirt down. But today I want to say something to you. These old, tired narratives that hide the shame of someone else. We know that they are projections. We know that they are scapegoating. We know that they are ways to find ways to not deal with the stain of your own shame. But they have to stop. They hurt us all. They hurt all women. They hurt all men. They hurt our children. And if we're going to get there, we have to get there together. We have to get there whole and in truth. I don't always say what I see, but I always go to work. We're finding out a lot, and I don't think we're too fragile to know the truth. I think we're too ashamed to speak it. The anger, the shame, the resentment, the guilt, they don't work anymore. When I do speak out, I'm going to say it like it is. I've been saying it like it is. I'm going to say it in love, but I'm going to say it like it is. I love you, and I love that you listen. I love that you're learning. I love that you're growing, because I am too.